I don't see these often enough to pass one up when I do see it. Not at that price, so he's going to come with me.
Hi, I'm George the Antique Nomad. Come with me as I wander the country in search of valuable vintage, amazing antiques, and cool collectibles. We'll buy, sell, and trade at antique malls, shops, and shows, estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores, anywhere people go to find really interesting things that just aren't made anymore. So come on, let's go!
Hey everybody, it's George the Antique Nomad, and I am on my way back from Florida where I saw family and did a little estate sale. You can see I'm in a fairly packed car, but there's a little bit of room, so I wanted to stop at one of my favorite antique stores that's right off the freeway in Georgia. Okay, so you see there to the left are Peach Shops and to the right is Antiques Mall. Peach Shops was a factory outlet center. There's still some factory outlet stores here. When I was in the factory outlet business, gosh, 25, 30 years ago, we found out that antique stores and factory outlet stores were very compatible because people came from long distances and stopped when they were driving through. These people kind of followed our lead and started this factory outlet center, and then another group came in and said, well, let's put an antique mall next door. The factory outlet center is mostly switched over to local stores. There is a used bookstore and there's a hospice thrift store, but unfortunately this is a Monday and neither of them are open, so we're just going to go to the antique mall. The antique mall has done well and is still thriving after 25 years, I believe. It's Big Peach Antique Mall. Georgia, of course, is the peach state, and Byron, this little town, is where peaches come from. There's showcases right when you come in the door here, and there's interesting stuff right off the bat. This is auspicious when you walk in, and the first emphasis is on merchandise and not the cash desk. I figure they know what they're doing. I showed a pair of these on Instagram lately. These are from about 1915, and these were Carter's ink bottles. See the little gal there? And they're really cute little advertising pieces. They've got this priced at about $100. There was a man and a woman. She's got the rolling pin. She looks a little annoyed, like she might hit him with it. Pudgy Pig is an iron mold, like a cake mold. People would do novelty cakes back in the teens and 20s, and Pudgy Pig is not one I've seen before. He's priced at about $125. You see the Griswold Lamb probably the most frequently, and they sell for around $100. This place is laid out in a really logical way where all the showcases are in one spot so it's easy for them to service. I always thought that was a smart idea. There's a fellow here right in the door who gets a lot of militaria. You see old bayonets. Most of these are Army Air Forces. We're near Macon, Georgia, and Warner Robins has a big Air Force base. So there's interest in this from local collectors. Here's a World War II airborne bayonet, and that is priced at $80. The prices on bayonets have really gone up. It used to be you could get a common one for around $45. There is one here underneath that doesn't have the matching sheath for $50, but they go up from there. And they were made by Imperial and Camillus and all those companies that made pocket knives and stuff as well. There's a cute McCoy piece you don't see very often. They actually have a lot of the little McCoy novelties in this case that you don't see too much. I bought a lot of cap guns in a case here once, so I'm hoping maybe we'll see some more of those. But in the meantime, you see the Ramming Goat by McCoy and the fish. The open hands you see a little more frequently, but there's some neat pieces. And then down below they even have the McCoy pedestals with the jardinières. You don't see the pedestals very often. A lot of them got knocked over and broken because these were two separate pieces. This was a very popular thing to have in gardens between about the late teens and early 30s. Roseville made a lot of these as well. More military cutlery. This is a good piece to show here. They say, and look at the handle because they're right, look at the scabbard. This is a typical 1840s and I'd say till about 1870s cavalry sword. These were imported to the United States, but these were often what was issued during the Civil War. Now, when you see them that have officer grade labeling on them, or labeling indicating that they were made in the United States, they can be quite a bit more valuable. There's the scabbard and handle. The U.S. Ordnance contracted with a company called Saken, which I believe was out of Germany. And these were made starting in about 1839 and 40. A lot of these were used by the Confederacy as well as the Union, because, of course, we were ordering for all parts of the Army, and then all of a sudden we split up. Ping pong, or table tennis, became very popular in the mid-1960s, especially. And Coca-Cola got in on the act by issuing Drink Coca-Cola marked ping pong sets. I believe this is priced somewhere in the $75 range. It has never been out of its box. Here we go. Here's my cap gun guy. I'm going to have to take a little bit of time and look through these to see if there's any more that I can purchase for resale. I bought a whole collection from here and sold practically the whole collection the next day to a dealer friend of mine in Florida, so I am out. But they are really cool and people really enjoy them. The K on the handle of this one stands for Kenton. You see that little mother of pearl handle, it says Ranger. They have prices between $25 and $45 on most of these. They were made by a lot of different companies, starting really in the 1920s and obviously peaked in popularity in the 50s during the cowboy craze. So I'll spend a little bit of time with these. A couple of things to look for on the old cap guns. If they have paint, they're going to be a little more valuable. Plastic handles in good shape will be more valuable. These were played with, so looking at condition is really important. They need to work. They need to pull back and click and fire when they're released, and also surface rust can be a negative. Companies involved with this is everyone from Kenton with the K, like in the back there, the one that says Premier Safety, to Hubley. This one's a Mohican, this little one here. National was a company you see. If it has an S on it, that stands for Stevens. They made a lot of them. There are a lot of different companies. There's also in the middle there, see that odd looking flat one that says EC on the grip. That is a spud gun. You could actually shoot little potato pellets at your brothers and sisters. Potatoes, for some reason, became toys. Mr. Potato Head, spud guns. I guess there were a lot of potatoes around, so it was something you just let your kids play with, I suppose. Here's something that has a little bit of relevance to now in a strange way. This is a reserve seating ticket that wasn't used for the Waco, Texas Army Flying School versus the Aero Commandos of Wichita. And this was a game held in Lawrence Stadium in Wichita, saying buy U.S. war bonds and stamps. The reason that that's interesting is that just like now, where we're having a lot of sports on hiatus, this was a time when most of the people who were involved in football and baseball were drafted, and so we weren't having those kinds of professional sports. So since all those players were in the military started sponsoring teams, and that's where we were able to have sporting events. So I'm looking through this bunch of backstage passes. This guy has an interesting collection, and I know Rick Ocasek from the Cars is no longer with us. I think people remember that band. I think we'll get that. Joe Cocker, but that was a little bit after his time. This one says Crew. These are all genuine. The Cure, that's a band that probably people remember now. Melissa Etheridge. Oh, Samantha Fox, I've got to get her. A friend of mine always had a thing for her when she was popular. That'll be funny. Okay, let's see who else we have. Katie Lang, Patti LaBelle. It's funny, I would have said Patti LaBelle isn't my kind of music, but I saw her once just by mistake and she was really great. Living Color, that was a band I liked, but I'm looking mainly for novelties or stuff that's going to really jump out at people. Eddie Murphy. That's kind of fun and very 80s looking. Yeah, let's take one of those. Why not? I see Poison, big old hair band. David Lee Roth. Tour staff, that looks like Sting. Oh, here we go. I think we got to take this one because that 70s show does some very funny jokes involving Todd Rundgren, so I think people know who that is now. Okay. Oh yes, Fog Hat with Whitesnake. All right. Now this is a beautiful piece here. This is a Joseph Pfeiffer bronze, and it's painted on bronze. It's a musician. This should date to sometime right around 1900. It's got a little bit of paint loss, which is why they have 500 on it, but there is an auction estimate of 800 to 1200. If I was a good art restorer, I would buy that and touch it up. You'd have to disclose that you did that, but what a great looking figure. If you need to wear a pin this big to get somebody to notice, well, I guess it'll work. Here's one in the original package. Kiss me, I'm sweet. I'm sure that would make you popular. There will be a little glare, but there's some good Yadro figures that I want to show. The one on the left is quite large and complex. You can see all the detail. It's a limited edition signed and numbered with certificate. You can see the certificate in the back. It's dated 1972. So there aren't many of him. He's priced at $1,600. Some of the big Yadro figures do still go for big amounts. And then we see the Pilgrims there. That one's retired. But this Yadro is one that you might not recognize as Yadro. And look, it's owls. Owls were such a popular motif in the 1970s that everybody from little Japanese pottery companies to Yadro made these kind of things. And look at the detail. A definitely different kind of glaze for Yadro. Also a limited edition from 1972 priced at $1,500, but that's a hard one to find. Here's a nice case with Carnival glass, and these are mostly earlier pieces. You see the trunk vases, which are the predecessors to the 1960s swung vases that are so popular with people now. Then below we have an imperial glass diamond lace water set. A water set would have 6 glasses and the big water pitcher. And this is an earlier imperial set. This is priced at $350. This is an orange tree bowl by Fenton in front, but that is in red, meaning the glass is red underneath. Kind of hard to tell, but you can sort of see it in the reflection in the mirror behind. And that is why that piece is priced at $175, because you don't see a lot of Carnival glass on red glass. And then behind, also on red, is a Fenton red holly plate with really wonderful bright iridescence. And then down below we have the various other patterns. This one is also a Fenton pattern. Next to it is a stretch glass, which is late in Carnival production, where it was more of an onion skin and a very light iridescence. You see one in pink and one in green. Those date probably to about 1920. And you'll sometimes see Carnival glass with an opalescent edge. They would put a chemical in that would make the edges go white when they made them. And this is peach opalescent with the star pattern. A lot of people collect baseball cards. Not too many people know about these little round fan-shaped items that stuck up out of the 6-packs. These were done by Pepsi-Cola in the late 1970s. They're priced at $4 to $5 a piece. There's Ken Griffey. That was Ken Griffey Jr.'s dad. He was a famous player before Ken Griffey became a famous player on his own. Rick Manning. Over here we have Carlton Fisk. This is still close enough to the era that people collect in baseball. This is before we get into the 1980s, where baseball cards are massively overproduced and become, at this point, a lot less collectible because there's just too many. And this is advertising for a t-shirt. It would be fun to find the superstar shirt that they actually gave you if you got these free trading cards and you took up their offer. Then you could get the shirt. Please subscribe if you haven't already. It doesn't cost anything. And hit that like button. And if you're really into it and you do want to be a supporter, you can actually join memberships as well now. So you can click the join button and find out more about that. So now back to the video. The prices on this sort of gold painted barware have really gone up. This set is priced at $70. This is Fred Press. We see Culver, we see Georges Briard, but Fred Press, unfortunately I can't find one that's in a case and I don't want to bother them for it, but it would have a signature that says Fred Press on them somewhere. And the black and gold is an attractive color scheme, and that's part of the appeal. Here's a nice collection of enamel glass. Most of these pieces are going to be Italian or Bohemian, meaning Czechoslovakia. Most of these are 1960s vintage, but there's a few Victorian as well. When you see these layered flowers with the round petals sticking off, these are usually Italian. You'll see it in bar glass, you'll see it in boudoir items, you'll see vases. But then behind is a tumble up, and that appears to be Victorian enamel glass. See, the cup is upside down. That was so you could cover your water so that the animals didn't get in it at night, or little critters or dust, and you could leave it by your bedside and have a sip in the middle of the night without having to get up. I still use one of these. I think they're wonderful. And I used to have a cat, and I remember him knocking a glass of water over on my head in the middle of the night, and so I got a tumble up after that, and he got to drink out of his own bowl like he was supposed to in the first place. Naughty kitty. One thing to look for in antique stores, with the price of silver varying like it is, it's up to in the high 20s currently as I'm videotaping this. These are priced at $18 each, and they're neat old sterling souvenir spoons. The one that's probably the best deal is the one with the chieftain's head, which is the one with the green tag laying over it in the center here. These are worth weighing because you might, depending if it sat in an antique store for a while, you might be able to get something for less than it's worth for scrap. I hate to see them go to scrap, but it's certainly a way to buy something of value, especially if you're a silver collector. Below here, again, we're near an Air Force base, so we've got a lot of these service badges, the airman's badges with various motifs in the middle, and the different shields and crests have to do with whether you were a pilot, whether you were a gunner. Sometimes has to do with what theater you were serving in. A lot of these are Second World War. The second from the one on top here is Australian wings, which are hard to find in this country at least. So for our viewers in Australia, if you come into any of these, they have those priced at about a couple $100. So check for those. You might have something that somebody in the States wants that's actually easy to ship. Up here are the Civil War currency from the little local banks that are not the Confederate state of America, but are actually locally issued. It was so hard to get currency during the Civil War that there were lots of little banks that issued their own. And these are much more valuable, generally speaking, than the Confederate currency, which they produced in lieu of debt and made millions of. Here's Greensboro Mutual Bank. That's 50 cents. It's a life insurance and trust company, actually, rather than a bank. The Bank of Savannah. These are priced between $65 and $200, depending. Mechanics Banks. The Bank of Nashville. Nashville was a state capital, but it was a still fairly small town, so the states were issuing their own. Of course, the Confederacy, in part, was founded on the idea that the states would have more sway and more control over things, and not be subject to a central authority. So there was a lot of different things going on between states. And then you see the state of Florida, Tallahassee, that's a bond from 1863 priced at $45. Florida was a very small state during the Civil War period. Timber Cutters Bank of Savannah, Georgia. And then you see what we see more typically, which are the Confederate States of America. The $5 bills are $35 a piece to $50 a piece, depending on type. That's pretty typical. Even the $50 bills are only $65 a piece because, again, they issued a lot of these. Now I'm in the main part of the antique mall, and we see a lot of dealer spaces here. There's probably over 100, and the first one we're going to come into on the left has a lot of nice furniture, typically. This old marble table I find rather attractive with the 4-turned columns. This is a type of furniture you see in the 1860s and 70s. In fact, Robert E. Lee signed the surrender of the Confederacy to Ulysses S. Grant on a larger version of this same table. Here's a nice corner cabinet. Corner cabinets are handy, of course, because when we look at the side, you see it fits in a corner, and corners can be hard spaces to use. So you get display space in a corner instead of just sort of an area for the dust to collect. This is a nice mahogany piece that looks like it's 20th century. Little desk here as well. There's still more interest in traditional furniture in Georgia and the deep southern states as opposed to modernism, although we are going to see a modernist dealer in here. These are transferware, but these are Meissen, and we're going to show the back. You can sell transferware. See where the decal's broken up a little bit? That's a clue right there. See in the orange where it's a little bit distressed? Also this orange flower you can see. So it's a Bavarian company, and Old Meissen is the pattern. Meissen plates are still rather valuable and collectible. Here's a bunch of neat American pottery. We've got a lot of Ohio potters here. I see a Shawnee hand holding a vase. I see a speckled red wing piece next to it, the pink pitcher. You're going to see pieces of Hull and McCoy in here, and then some companies that we may not see so often. Now, when you see a label like this, Gorgeous Gifts Drews, there was a Drews pottery, but that was out of California. These are actually Weller. Drews is the company that sold these pieces, and companies would put their little labels on so that you would come back and buy more from them. But on the bottom here, it's thickly glazed where it's hard to see, but there actually is a Weller mark on it. Now this lamp is really cool looking. The dealer has marked it as antique brass, and it isn't exactly brass. It's painted, and it looks like brass, but it's actually spelter. It's a mix of lighter metals that are easy to mold, and we can tell that by looking at the part that appears to be brass on the surface. Look how it's worn away there. Brass is brass all the way through, so this is actually painted to look like brass, but really it's just sort of semantics because it is a beautiful piece anyway. I really like the painting. I like the ram's heads. You get the idea. And it's got a nice sculpted column. It's priced at $2.95. Still thinking maybe we should have a funky lamp challenge where we all take pictures of the strangest lamps we can find and then send them to Crazy Lamp Lady, and we'll let her pick which one she thinks is the strangest, which one she thinks is the most beautiful, etc. I think it'd be fun to have sort of a collaborative challenge. I'll have to talk to her about that. Anyhow, these pieces here are Manhattan. This is a pattern I collected. I was interested in Duncan & Millen's Caribbean, which is a beautiful pattern, but it was out of my budget. Manhattan was not fire polished, not elegant glass. This was depression glass. And so it was for people on more of a budget. And when I was in my 20s and started in this business and was collecting, I was on more of a budget. So I had a very large set of this. Love the concentric rings. It was reissued in the 1980s by Anchor Hawking, who's the maker, as Park Avenue. But they did a really nice thing. They made sure that all the new pieces were done in an azure blue color that was never done in the first place. So if it was a new piece that was the same style as an old piece, it was in azure blue. And the only thing they did in clear were new styles that they hadn't done in the first place. Here's an example. The original 1930s glasses had feet. The 1980s Park Avenue glasses did not have feet, and I have to admit, for my taste, I like them better without the feet. So you could mix and match. They made it for 5 years originally, and then it was out of production, and then when Deco Revival became a big thing in the 80s, that's when these pieces came back into style and back into the line. But they were very good to the collectors, and so you can collect both without any confusion or concern, and they both have value as a result. It's nice when companies respect their fans and actually take care of them that way. Now here's a whole lot of vintage fashion crammed into one little place. It'll be hard to get back and show anything really well, but I did want to show you this because what I like about it is created in San Francisco for the Sophisticated Miss by Solo. Solo San Francisco. So that is actually a 1960s designer dress, which is why they featured it. It's rather pretty, and I think they have it priced at $35. We'll show you these because these are two of the most popular Roseville patterns with collectors, even still. On the left is the brown pine cone in the vase, a pocket vase they call those, with that shape. And then the cornucopia to the right is blue fuchsia, and fuchsia is one of their most popular patterns as well. Even though the prices have come down on Roseville quite a lot, that's just made it more accessible to new collectors, and there's still interest in it, and if you price it right, it still sells. It's still good stuff. Avoid the Chinese fakes. They are very easy to spot if you compare them to a real one because they look like they were sloppily painted and they're just not very crisp in the design. This space is having a 35% off sale, and of course I always look for sales because I'm buying for resale, and at 35% off they might have something that I can use. This is a really crazy clear iris lamp by Pittsburgh Glass. Pittsburgh was a company that made beautiful glass lamps around 1900. You can see this Gone with the Wind style. That's a little out of my budget. I think it's in the $500 range, but still beautiful. They have a lot of nice porcelains in a case here that we can show. Some of them are quite beautiful, like the RS Prussia chocolate set here. Chocolate sets were made for hot chocolate and that sort of thing, so they are different than a coffee set. The cups are typically tall and narrow, as you see, as is the pot itself, and that's a very graceful style. And then we have a little child's style tea set that's just very cute. Look at the little figures on that. Nice porcelain set, and that one appears to be Bavarian. This light cover is a neat painted 1920s floral deco. This is early style deco. The French deco was coming out of the Art Nouveau period, and so they tended to emphasize floral geometrics more. And then the Americans developed the streamlined style that was more about geometrics without flowers. This is an old Royal Doulton teapot with the milkmaid. Nice handled Nippon vases here. This one may be Royal Nippon. They did the more elaborate beading in the Moriaga style. Even though that's a European style transfer, it is a Nippon piece they were making for export primarily at this point. The Wavecrest pieces out of Connecticut are things that you see, but this one has a scene painted on top, and that's a little bit different for that dresser jar.
So there are a lot of lovely things like this made between 1900 and 1930 that are things that were very collectible 20 or 30 years ago and are very good quality that people sometimes overlook today. And there are still customers for them because they really are nicely done. So if you're out there and seeing things like this, keep your eyes out. For example, here's a cider jug, and fans of Crazy Lamp Lady will have seen she got a large collection of these, I think maybe 6 months ago, and did several videos that featured cider jugs, and they are collectible. Okay, well, I had a chance because I'm socially distanced to drop the mask for a moment because there's nobody around, and I wanted to show some things in here. I'm a little sad because I love the stuff I'm seeing in this booth, and it turns out they're having a special auction event, and it's next weekend, and I won't be able to be here because it's Labor Day weekend and I have my show. But let's show some of the stuff that's going to be at the auction because they've got some cool things in here. Love the bunny rabbit. He folds. I'm not sure what he's for. I imagine he was part of some bigger advertising sign, but he's really great. They have a Big Show pinball machine. That's a really neat piece. Some old Popeye toys. Popeye was so popular in the 1920s and 30s, and a lot of tin toys were made, as well as some plastic ones. Popeye, of course, went on as a character for many, many years. The movie didn't come out until 1980, so there's a lot of generations who know him. And boy, they've got a bunch of different stuff. This must have been someone's collection that they're letting go. There's a chalkware one. There's the Popeye Express with the parrot on it. And in the back, you've got the pencil sharpener is Popeye. This is a really good collection. And there's also a wooden wind-up toy with him. I'm not sure whether Fisher-Price made that one or someone else. But there's also these Christmas lights with Popeye and Sweet Pea, who was Olive Oil's baby. They never really explained that very well. Popeye is dating this woman with a baby, and is it his? Is it someone else's? You know, that was pretty progressive for its time, and they just sort of glossed over the whole thing. A little rubber toy for the bathtub from the 50s, and then there's Popeye in a speedboat that looks sort of like a hydroplane. So this is a fun collection. Popeye was King Features production, and then this toy collection goes on. This is going to be a fun auction. There's 1920s and 30s pressed steel toys by Buddy L and other companies. This one is the police chief that has the lights that actually work. This one has the ambulance. That's a hard one to find. This is going to be a fun auction, and I wish I could be here, but darn it, I've got, well, other fun fields to go to, so someone else will have a lot of fun here. Oh, and one last thing we should show, Cherry Smash. This should go for $300 to $500 easily, maybe more at auction. This would have been a countertop soda jar, and it would have been actually where the syrup was mixed and then you put the carbonation in, and that's how you got a glass of soda back then. If you have a formal home or you love plants, perhaps an antique column is your style. I think they're beautiful, and I find that columns sell very readily when I get them. I don't come into them very often because people usually hold on to them. Even in a more modern and informal setting, one piece like this can really set off a room where everything else is sort of boxy and square and modernist looking. And then here we have another plant stand, and this is Art Nouveau. This is real Art Nouveau. We do not see a lot of Art Nouveau in America. Plant stands were one of the things that were popular in this country during the Art Nouveau era because of the naturalistic and floral aspect that they typically had. Sinuous curves, you can see that they terminate in these open leaves and flowers. Very pretty piece. This one's rather tall. It's almost as tall as I am. It's probably 5.5 feet tall. And with the discount, it is priced at
approximately $495, which is a pretty good deal because, again, you don't see Art Nouveau very often. Now, another thing I don't see often is this treasure craft horse. The horse and cowboy are featured in my book. The horses got knocked over a lot and broken, and you see the cowboys even less. Let's see what he is with the discount. 45 minus 35%. Well, you know what? I don't see these often enough to pass one up when I do see it. Not at that price. So he's going to come with me. We're going to trot up to the front counter, and I will be back and film more. Well, the Big Peach Antique Mall really is peachy, and it is really big. So there's another half to show you. Come join me in my next video, and we will show you the back half of the mall. There's some really cool things back there that I can't wait for you to see. Meanwhile, this is George the Antique Nomad. I'm on Periscope, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and I look forward to seeing you for more antiquing adventures soon. From the Vintage World, bye-bye for now.
Thanks for joining me again in the fun and fascinating antique community here where online meets the real world. Please click the subscribe button below, click the bell to be notified when new videos upload, leave a comment below, and hit thumbs up to like this video. Links to our online social media daily posts and our items for sale are in the description. This is George at the Antique Nomad. Bye for now.